Welcome to the Fort Bend ISD Instructional Expectations for Parents. We are excited to have you here today to engage in some information about the instructional expectations set forth by Fort Bend ISD. Today's session goals are to provide an overview of the instructional expectations for the 2020-2021 school year and provide information about the learning framework, remote synchronous and asynchronous instruction, progress monitoring and assessment, and attendance. As you may be aware, Dr. Dupree and the board have extensively discussed how and when schools will reopen. Through their decision-making process, it was determined that school facilities will remain closed until health experts, the board, and the superintendent deem it safe to return. This means that Fort Bend ISD has to reimagine what learning will look like and shift from what we typically do face-to-face to an online environment. We know that when this pandemic hit, it was hard on all of us. However, we made it work. I am happy to let you all know that the district has worked long and hard reimagining instructional practices and has provided a learning framework that will help facilitate this work. These components should be embedded in our instruction regardless of learning model, face-to-face or online. Let's take a look at this graphic so that we can get a general idea of the big ticket items that make up this school year's instructional expectations. We will look at this graphic clockwise, beginning with content. We will continue to provide students with academically rigorous content that is aligned to the required state standards called the TEKS and Fort Bend ISD curriculum. We will look at this component more in depth in the next slide. Next is the social emotional supports. Fort Bend ISD is committed to building relationships, promoting engagement, and creating opportunities for student voice, choice, and relationship building that provides for ownership in the classroom environment. As we look at the attributes of the profile of a graduate, students will have the ability to connect with their peers and empower them to learn, explore other perspectives, and collaboratively problem solve. Progress monitoring and assessment are a critical component of this framework, and it helps support the design of instruction to meet the needs of all learners. Second to last, we have feedback, and this supports students in knowing where they are in the learning process, helps them define where they need to go in the learning, and finally, it allows them to outline a pathway for them to know how to get there. Finally, we have goal setting and revision. Through the feedback support, students will have the opportunity to goal set and then revise. This may look like student resubmitting through Schoology at times. As you can see, Fort Bend ISD has really processed what we did in March through May and has developed a more aligned and structured framework as we launch the 2020-2021 school year. We hope for your support as we embark on this journey. In the next few slides, we are going to highlight and provide you information on how the content will be provided. We will begin with the basics. Fort Bend ISD has a curriculum aligned to the TEKS that certified teachers will use in collaboration with other teachers to design learning experiences in Schoology. For those of you new to the district, Schoology is the learning management system Fort Bend ISD uses to provide learning to students. I recommend you check out one of our Parent Schoology courses to get more information. While teachers are planning and designing their learning experiences, they ensure that English language learners are receiving their linguistic accommodations, and they are planning and including individual supports for students receiving special education services, including accommodation and modifications as indicated on an IEP or Individual Education Plan, and they are also designing curriculum alternatives to meet and support our gifted learners. You may ask or think to yourself, that sounds like a lot of time in planning. How are the teachers going to be able to accomplish all of these expectations? Well, the district has been very intentional on the use of teachers' time as we work online and have embedded plenty of time into their workday to ensure all of the students' needs are met. The last point here is that all the learning experiences that teachers will be designing will be delivered through synchronous and asynchronous learning. Let's learn about more of that in the next 2 slides. Let's first take a look at remote synchronous instruction. Remote synchronous instruction is literally learning that happens at the same time. Your students could have a designated time of the day when the teacher will expect students to log on and engage in instruction. Students will be able to ask questions just like they would in a face-to-face environment. Your student will be using the Teams platform to engage in synchronous instruction. Not only will the teachers host synchronous instructions to explicitly teach and model concepts, but they will also ensure to facilitate collaborative activities, formatively assess students, and monitor progress, which we will discuss a little later, and confer with students and host small group instruction. The teachers are required to have daily synchronous and asynchronous learning. Later in this presentation, we will discuss what this will look like for the different grade levels. Remote asynchronous instruction is instruction that does not require having the instructor and students engaged at the same time. As mentioned earlier, Fort Bend ISD uses Schoology as the learning management system where asynchronous instructions are housed. Students would log into Schoology daily to access class content, classroom expectations, daily assignments, and much more. Students will have the opportunity to demonstrate understanding through assessments, practice the creation of content, collaborate with their peers, and engage in feedback with one another using digital tools. Asynchronous instruction also allows the flexibility for students to review and re-engage in past content. Please also know that though this learning may be a little more flexible, it is strongly encouraged that your child check the due dates and assignments frequently and well in advance to ensure that they have ample time for completion. Now that we have reviewed what synchronous and asynchronous instruction is, let's take a look at the total percentage of time students will be engaged in either synchronous or asynchronous per week. For pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade students, there are a total of 1,800 instructional minutes per week. 825 of those minutes is dedicated to synchronous instruction, and 975 minutes are dedicated to asynchronous instruction. For 2nd through 5th grade, there are a total of 1,845 instructional minutes per week. 1,025 of those minutes are dedicated to synchronous instruction, and 825 are dedicated to asynchronous instruction. Lastly, secondary students have a total of 1,805 instructional minutes. 1,205 minutes of synchronous instruction, 280 minutes of asynchronous instruction, and 320 minutes dedicated to mental health breaks and transitions. Now let's start to look at the details of how those minutes will be broken down per level. Students in grades pre-kindergarten through 1st grade will engage in synchronous and asynchronous instruction. Remember, synchronous instruction is a live, real-time session between the teacher and the students. Asynchronous instruction does not require that the teacher and the students engage at the same time. The daily schedule for pre-K through 1st grade students will include the following minutes of instruction in each subject area. Asynchronous learning experiences are flexible and may be engaged by the students at any time during the week. The asynchronous minutes represent the approximate amount of time a student may spend engaging in planned asynchronous learning experiences. Here is an example of what a pre-kindergarten through 1st grader schedule could look like. Take a moment to review. Students in grades 2nd through 5th grade will engage in synchronous and asynchronous instruction as well. Remember, synchronous instruction is a live, real-time session between the teacher and the students. Asynchronous instruction does not require the teacher and the students to be engaged at the same time. The daily schedule for 2nd through 5th grade students will include the following minutes of instruction in each subject area. Asynchronous learning experiences are flexible and may be engaged by the student at any time during the week. The asynchronous minutes represent the approximate amount of time a student may spend engaging in planned asynchronous learning experiences. Here is an example of what a 2nd through 5th grade schedule could look like. Take a moment to review. Students in middle and high school will engage in synchronous and asynchronous instruction as well. Remember, synchronous instruction is a live, real-time session between the teacher and the students. Asynchronous instruction does not require the teacher and the students to be engaged at the same time. The daily schedule for middle and high school students will include 60 minutes of synchronous instruction per class period on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. On Wednesday, students will engage in synchronous instruction for 35 minutes in every class period. Asynchronous learning experiences are flexible and may be completed by the student as determined by the coursework and communicated by the teacher. The asynchronous minutes represent the approximate amount of time a student may spend engaging in planned asynchronous learning experiences. Progress monitoring and assessment are critical components of this instructional expectation framework because it helps support the design of instruction to meet the needs of all learners. Assessments should empower and grow all learners to determine where students are and where they are going in the teaching process. In this graphic, we see how the teachers will progress, monitor, and assess students. The teacher will use authentic student work to measure understanding. This could be done through the submission of an assignment in Schoology or through an assessment the teacher has provided during their synchronous instruction. Teachers will monitor engagement by tracking completion activities through Schoology. During asynchronous learning, students will be required to submit evidence of their learning, and teachers have the ability to track this submission to monitor progress. The students will engage in ongoing formative assessments with teacher and peer feedback. Formative assessments are a range of formal and informal assessment during the learning process that allows a teacher to adjust instruction to meet the student needs. The teacher will use different assessment modalities to measure student learning. You can rest assured that not one particular assessment will be the determining factor of your students' learning in the classroom. The teacher will communicate progress to students and parents through Skyward. If you are new to the district and are not familiar with Skyward, please make sure to watch the training video on it. This is the platform we use to communicate progress of the student. The assessments presented to students will be designed and aligned in collaboration with other teachers during their planning time. Attendance in the online environment will look differently than it did last spring. Teachers are required to record attendance daily. For students in grades 3 through 12, attendance is based on being engaged in the synchronous live lessons daily at the designated time. For grades pre-K through 2nd grade, students are marked present through asynchronous engagement daily. All students must make daily progress in their courses through synchronous and asynchronous learning, and attendance will be taken daily in all courses to count towards course credit. Fort Bend ISD utilizes Blackboard Connect to notify parents when students are marked absent. The Blackboard Connect system sends weekday daily attendance messages to parents for students who are marked absent. If you have any questions, please reach out to your campus. We look forward to having a successful year.